Hi everybody, how you doing? Mr. Gorley here. What you are about to witness is a new student platform dedicated to provide a voice, or in this case, voices, on various student issues, interesting hot topic items that influence kids today. It's called the Falcon 15. The first episode will focus on expectations. Is having too high or too low expectations good or not so good? And what about the factors that influence those expectations, not only within yourself, but within your peer group as well, and your parents? Now take note, there are some common themes as we explore this realm of expectations. Let's see if you can spot them. We all come from various backgrounds, have different points of view and experiences. So let's see what our diverse educational community has to say. So let's sit back, relax, and enjoy the very first episode of the Falcon 15. Time's a ticking.
Hi, I'm Amy DeLone. I guess I'm your everyday average high schooler who has a lot going on. Let me give you a rundown. First off, I'm so overwhelmed and stressed. I have so much to do. I'm so sore from last night's physical therapy and I only got 5 hours of sleep. Wait, did I take Spike out? Did I pack my gym clothes? Did I even unplug my flat iron? I have 2 tests today. I have to turn in my essay for English. I need to make sure I help Annie with her algebra homework. I must start contacting college coaches. I need to complete all my community service hours too. My mom and dad expect for me to get good grades. How do I cope with all this pressure and stress? I have my sports, my academics, and I can't forget about my friends. I'm starting to feel like I'm too distracted from all of this. What would my parents say if my grades begin to fall? Sometimes I just wonder, how will this affect me now and in my future? It's all just too much. My parents' expectations, my teachers' expectations, and the expectations I place on myself can be overwhelming at times. This leads to stress. I know I'm going to be resourceful and turn to my Gersto community. I will talk to some students, but I can also turn to adults who are parents too. Let's start with Ms. Gopalan.
I think it can be difficult to know when things are too much. However, I think as a parent, I would hope that I can instill in my child that she can ask questions, that it's okay to tell us how she's feeling.
The negative aspects of having too high of expectations came from myself, because my parents, they were pretty easygoing with me, but I still remember to this day the first time I got a C, and I literally was so scared to tell my parents, and I don't know why, because they saw that I was in tears and they were telling me that it's okay.
Wow, she was hard on herself too.
I know for me, I'm a perfectionist, and I have very high expectations for myself, and I'm very hard on myself, and my parents have pretty high expectations for me too. And I know sometimes I don't meet those expectations, and I get really hard on myself, and I beat myself up for not meeting those expectations.
Interesting how Miss O and Emmy have the same thoughts. I wonder how Miss O feels about her students.
My students, I feel I also see that in the same kind of variation as well, where for a lot of them, it's they're mainly just the hardest on themselves, and I constantly want them to be less hard on themselves so that they can, not be afraid to try harder problems that they probably could do if they weren't so scared of letting themselves down by thinking that they're failing themselves by not getting things correct.
What are Tyson's thoughts about failure?
Parents should be ready for their kid to fail at something once at a time, because the kid is definitely going to make a mistake and fail once.
I think Xavier has some valid thoughts too.
A lot of the time that can lead to children fearing failure, and when that happens, it sort of builds a bit of a toxic relationship.
Haley knows how a student athlete feels.
Athletes will have so much pressure from their parents to perform well or to play a certain way, and when that happens, they tend to get nervous or try too hard to the point where it's affecting their mental health.
Ajay is never at a loss for words.
It just brings extra stress. You're already trying to you're already trying to do well in your classes, obviously, and do well in the sports field in every aspect. And if you then have another, say, outside influence trying to push you to go higher, it's then just added stress onto your stress alone, because we already all are stressing to try to be the best.
I feel some parents set those high expectations because they feel their kid can do it, that they would never try to force a situation, but others feel that because maybe in their past they had high expectations, that they would bring it down to their kid, and that's not the best situation, because why would you want to pull all that stress and anxiety towards your kid when you know he's a smart kid regardless?
But how much is too much?
There comes a point in school, and in high school especially, when a lot of pressure from parents becomes too much, especially when if it's about doing your homework or your grades. If your grades are low, then kids are most likely already stressing about them, and the parents pushing them and pressuring them will more likely stress them out more.
I like what Gavin has to say about working to reach our full potential.
Everybody's at the same level. Some people aren't going to be able to get straight A's. I think my parents do a really good job. Basically, their whole motto is that as long as I'm doing my best, then, that's like the best that I can put out.
Parents' support is always encouraging.
And I think the parents should be there to help them, encourage them, and keep going and keep going.
Annie and Michaela also agree with Tyson and Gavin.
I think the good thing is that they're pushing you to do your best and always strive for greatness. I think the good thing is you don't have to worry about falling behind or anything, because your parents are always there to bring you back up.
Is there really a difference between when our parents grew up and what we're going through now?
I wish that my parents nowadays would understand it, because this is more modern. This isn't when they were in school. As I think parents should update their expectations.
Miss Meekins and Miss Suggs shed some light on the generational differences of expectations. We don't want to be compared to others.
I think that perhaps the difference between, say, my parents' expectations for me and perhaps the expectations that are on my students, or maybe the newer generations, younger generations, is that there's just a lot more information sharing, on social media. Oh, look at my kid, she got straight A's, she started the basketball team, and there's a lot more opportunity for comparison, which I think can be a slippery slope.
I can talk from the perspective of being a teacher. I actually am not a parent, but I'm also thinking about my parents, and I think it's a kind of a trade-off, like a balancing game of how high to have the expectations, because if a parent's expectations are too high, they can kind of promote a lot of stress and anxiety in the students. And sometimes when parents have such high expectations, they tend to maybe intercede for the student, and instead of letting the student, contact the teacher, or letting the student seek the help.
Mr. O is an experienced parent and teacher who is always on point with his words of wisdom.
Parents who are too much involved, hovering too much, too closely, too heavy-handed, can take some of the joy of learning away from the student. Well, it's a process for the student to achieve independence in the face of a parent who may be too involved for whatever reasons. I think it's important that parents take a look at why they are so involved in some cases, where the pressure feels so great on the part of the student, where he would like to say to his mom or dad, or she would, I've got this, Mom. So please allow me to fail.
And what about low expectations?
If the expectations are too low and the parents are kind of making excuses for kids or not expecting certain things at home, I think that can cause a lot of problems also.
I think not having low expectations of ourselves and others lowers your ability to perform better, and kind of gives you a lower self-esteem.
So, low expectations does affect students' performance.
I see the students becoming more stressed out and maybe less confident in themselves. That can have a lot of problems in the classroom or just in their whole life.
As we approach every endeavor with passion, conviction, and persistence, it's not always going to be perfect.
Yeah, in life, there's going to be mistakes every time, and if your parents don't allow mistakes, then that's pretty weird, because I know they made mistakes in their past lifetime, and they probably will still make mistakes. So every person goes through mistakes in life.
It also builds resiliency. Hey, let's all take note of this.
When they're putting too much pressure on you, it causes stress and can make you really sometimes depressed and sad about what you're doing.
More nuggets of knowledge from Miss Sugg.
So I think having that open line of communication between the parent and teacher is really good.
So what exactly are we saying to parents?
The biggest thing is just communication, not only from saying like the kids, or not only from the parents saying you have to do this to become better and to make this better. It's a team effort. The kid has to communicate to the parent when things are getting, say, like out of hand and making them stressed. But then also the parent has to be able to reply to that and react to that in a good way, in a positive way.
You're going to want to set them up for success. And when you have high expectations, and if your child meets those high expectations, then they're sort of able to set themselves up for success. And ultimately, that's just what you want for your child.
I would say try and see where the person is at themselves, because sometimes we're just in a place where we can't do our best and we can't meet those expectations, because some people might be able to, do their best and reach their highest potential on one day, and then the next day their best might not be the same. So I would say I think it really depends where someone is mentally.
A certain type of motivation is key.
Yeah, so some of the things we go over sometimes, especially at Christelle, is extrinsic versus intrinsic motivation. And intrinsic motivation is going to be what you're looking for in your children. So if you can find what your children are passionate about, then that's through that they're going to sort of build up their own willpower, and they're going to have the motivation to keep going with that. Whereas with extrinsic motivation, or in this case in specific, fearing failure, they're not going to be as motivated, and they're not going to have as healthy of a relationship with failure.
A healthy relationship with failure, that's resiliency.
Usually I find that, when students are interested in things, that they really do thrive, and they can really do really amazing things. So I guess that's what comes to mind for me.
You want to move your child to a place where he or she takes responsibility for their learning because of the joy of learning, because of their commitment to their subject that they're studying, not just to please the parent.
Always set your expectations to what you think you can get. And then you always strive to reach just a little bit above it. So that even if you don't reach the expectations of somebody else, you reach your expectations. And those expectations were that you did your job and you did it good. And then you work and you work and you work while you're meeting those expectations. And you work just a little bit harder. Just put in a little more effort, and you reach above and you meet yourself above those expectations. And if you always strive to meet above your expectations, then you will never be disappointed.
Let's see how some of our students and faculty use their time, talents, and treasures to cope with their stress.
I talk to my friends to relieve stress.
I binge Netflix shows.
I sleep when I'm stressed.
I relieve stress by taking naps.
I go outside to relieve stress.
I work out.
I relieve stress by playing video games with my friends. I relieve stress by playing basketball.
I take deep breaths and count, and I dance and just do things I like.
I listen to music.
One way I relieve stress is art.
My history teacher told us that he does this exercise before class where we take a minute to gather all our thoughts, like sit down and remove all distractions, and then we kind of just sit there in silence. So I end up doing that at home.
For me, what relieves stress is working out. Whether that's lifting weights or a good conditioning workout, the endorphin release I get from a hard workout always puts me in a better mood.
As I walk through these doors, I now feel a renewed sense of self-awareness and vigor. I'm ready to face any adversity or challenges that come with having high and low expectations on oneself, including those others in my support group, such as my teachers, peers, and parents. And being a part of a diverse educational community, we all share ideas about expectations. On my journey to reach my full potential, there truly is an art of positively influencing others to unite in a common direction and guiding them to improve themselves and their community.
Did you recognize some common themes associated with expectations? How many times did the stressometer go off? 15, I think. That's an average of 1 per minute. It seems like stress can be associated with expectations and affect our overall health and wellness. Some stress is a good thing, eustress. It's both motivating and beneficial to oneself. Other stress and influences of expectations can be overwhelming and destructive. As parents and teachers, we only want what's best for you. You know that. You've probably heard that before. What I think we need to take into account is your own happiness that relates to expectations. Understanding what makes you happy from all sides, your peers, your teachers, your parents, but most of all, yourself. It is essential to strike a balance and communicate when being open-minded when reflecting on the process. Self-awareness is essential to our critical thinking and overall health and total wellness. We hope you enjoyed this episode on expectations. We look forward to the next Falcon 15. Take care.